Right. Well, we're so happy that everyone is here. Thank you so much for being a part of our conversation, our dialogue this morning. I definitely know we're going to have other individuals that are going to join us later, and we are recording because it will be on our YouTube channel. But why are we here? Let me just kind of delve into that just a little bit because I recently read an article that was published by Sherm, and it was how to manage political discussions in the workplace. And one of the things that they found is that 51% of the respondents of a survey that was conducted by Resume Helps is that 51% of those respondents believe that the workplace political discussion will hurt the work environment. 51%. So that's a very large majority there. And with the presidential election quickly approaching, many of the workers in the US are bracing for more politics being talked not only at home but also in the workplace. So we really have to reframe our thoughts, if we do have them, regarding telling employees that they can't have these discussions. That's just not going to be the solution to this problem. And one of the things in the article that it states is Stephanie Neal, who is the director of the DDI Center for Analytics and Behavioral Research. One of the things that she said, and it really stuck out to me, is that if HR teams simply ban political discussion from the workplace, this is her quote, they risk making employees feel silenced, disengaged, and distrustful of leadership. So, with that being the case, that is why we are here. DPI is one of the sponsors of this event, and we bring calm to the chaos because as business owners, we work hard to build our brand, and we don't want one tweet, one post, one conversation in our workplace to completely erode everything that we have worked so hard for. So, now, before we get to the heavy topics, we do have a little bit of an icebreaker that we have. And so, as we're letting people in and they're coming into our virtual classroom this morning, what is your favorite guilty pleasure? Mine is pictured here on the screen. I love, love, love ice cream. And to be more specific, I love mint chocolate chip ice cream. So, for you, what is your guilty pleasure? Put it in the chat. Put that in the chat this morning. We just want to know, what is your guilty pleasure? And Rosalind, if
Yeah.
you are able to just share, if anybody is
Yes.
sharing what their guilty pleasure is, if you'll let us know.
And we're going to ask because this is going to be recorded. If you will mute your microphones, we will utilize the chat to make sure that we have a clean recording for our YouTube channel. But there is cigars, ice cream, Snickers bars. Yes, are some of the answers in regards to what our guilty pleasure is, our favorite guilty pleasure.
All right. So thank you. And thank you so much. I see chocolate chip cookies. And as Rosalind is bringing the screen back up and our PowerPoint back up, we wanted to celebrate this morning Women's Small Business Month, because we have so many small business owners that are women on this call. And so October is National Women's Small Business Month. In 1972, can you believe there were only 400,000 women-owned businesses in the US? Today, there are over 13 million women-owned businesses and counting. And so every October, the Small Business Administration honors the milestone achievements of women-owned businesses. And so if you are a woman-owned business, we celebrate you, we honor you this month, and congratulations. While you are listening to what our webinar this morning, please feel free to put your information in the chat, where you are coming from, what state you're in, and also the name of your business. Thank you to our sponsors for this event, DPI LLC, your trusted advisors that allow businesses to go further faster. We are a team of business advisors with an entire suite of solutions for businesses. And then also Renee Scott Insurance, which is located in Florida and offering also in Georgia as well. We take the pain out of shopping for auto, home, life, and business insurance. We have only one announcement before we get started because I know we're so ready to get started. But save this date, December 3rd from 8:30 to 10:30. We will have a strategic planning mastermind cohort, and you will walk away with a fully executable action plan for your 2025 goals. So just put that on your calendar so that you can save the date. And so, Rosin, if you could share our
Yes.
introductions.
Yes, so I would like to introduce for our first section, we're going to have a Q&A. Who will be moderating this is Renee Scott. She is co-founder of DPI LLC, and she is also owner of Renee Scott Insurance. She's my identical twin sister, in case you haven't been able to figure that out or know. She is a risk taker. I agree. She is entrepreneurial. She is goal-driven and influential. And those are just some of the words that people use to describe her throughout her career. She possessed this incredible ability to build strong business relationships that lead to market growth and successful achievement of strategic targets. No, I am not biased. Yeah, just a little bit I am. But that is Renee, and she will be asking questions of Lisa Perez. If you've been on any of our webinars before, you probably have met Lisa. She is a trusted advisor with our team. She is founder and CEO of HBL Resources, the Complete Manager Makeover. Her tag is transforming the human in human resources. She is a USA Today best-selling author. And she is really passionate for over 3 decades of experience. She's a member of SHRM and holds 2 nationally recognized HR certifications. Her firm is designated as an approved provider of the recertification credit programs for both SHRM and HRCI. As a certified bridge builder, she facilitates generational diversity workshops and is a DISC certified human behavior specialist. There is so much to know about Lisa, and she's just a gem. So I am looking forward to this session of Q&A between Renee as the moderating and Lisa. So ladies, take it away. And I forgot to say, Lisa's originally from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn's in the house.
Yes.
Don't hold that against me.
Yeah, I cannot leave that out. So take it away.
Lisa, we have about 15 minutes where we're going to talk high level. We won't be able to go so deep in the weeds, but we do want to have individuals leave with just some relevant ways for them to manage this in their workplace. And so we're going to start with a question that I want to ask you regarding how can they create a workplace and a culture that promotes civil discourse, right, during these heightened tensions of election season, without curbing employees' rights to express political opinions? Like,
Yeah.
how can they go about doing that?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. So I think at the heart of civility, right, and this is going to kind of play into my tagline, it is a human component. And when we think about this landscape, I want to share a little bit of a perspective, particularly as it relates to the fact that what's happening with our political discussions in the workplace is that these are emotions that are deeply held, right? They're values that are deeply held, opinions that are deeply held. And I think sometimes, civility means seeking first to understand people in the workplace, right? And each of us is holding on to some kind of hope, right? That the next leadership change is going to improve things for the things we care about based on our personal experiences, right? Not by anybody else's. And so I want to cue up just a little bit to highlight this. I'm going to share with you 3 or 4 people, right? Well, some maybe fictitious, maybe not. Maybe you know someone in these same situations, maybe not. But first, let me talk about Chip. Chip is building a life with his partner over 12 years. They didn't feel the need to get married when the changed law came for same-sex marriage, but they did get married for practical reasons. You see, Chip's partner was going to go through a very invasive surgical procedure, and there wasn't anybody there qualified to make medical decisions for him or receive beneficiary benefits. And that's as a result, that's what they chose as a result of what they were going through. And then there's Diane. Diane's a Catholic, and she's been married for 11 years to an illegal immigrant who applied for his green card and then voluntarily departed to Mexico. He's not yet been granted his return visa. 7 years ago, they've still been waiting to reunite. And while she's pro-choice, even though she is not of childbearing age, that is something very personal because she does believe that it's a sin, but she wants to ensure that the women of the world have the ability to safely obtain medical care if that's the decision they need to make for themselves. And then there's Justin. He's an atheist. He's a teacher, a servant-hearted single man with a grown child. He's a hard worker and sometimes has even 3 jobs. He cares deeply about fiscal responsibility and economic strength and job creation. He already gives a lot to his community, and in alignment with that value system, he's going to vote for the love your neighbor candidate. Each one of these, and I could go on and on and on with different stories and different people who, again, at the heart of their vote, at the heart of the matter is the experiences that they encounter. And so when you think about civility, civility is first understanding and knowing that each of them is unique, just as unique as every single human on this planet, in this nation, and in our workplaces. And I think civility starts with seeking first to understand who we really are outside of our political party.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
Yeah.
And then you're touching on something that Rosalind's going to talk about a little bit later because and some of us know about the iceberg effect, right? There's only a certain part of
Yeah.
individuals that we see on a daily basis.
Mhm.
And so it kind of, I love what you said, seeking first to understand.
Yeah, yeah. And civility really is about, from a practical standpoint, right? We need to have and employers need to advocate for policies that are outlining acceptable and non-acceptable workplace behaviors, right? I do
Hmm.
this session when we talk about a team environment. What are some of the attributes that make teams win? What are some of the attributes that make teams lose, right? The best and worst teams. And we can all identify what those attributes are. Well, that becomes some of the norms, right? We're going to show up on time. We're going to do our part. We're going to come to practice. We're not going to infight. We're not going to, not do our part. We're not going to slack, right? All of these things establish clear policies, and we can create those with civility. I mean, that's the advent of harassment-free workplace and violence in the workplace, right? Or non-harassment policies. All of those things are important, but I think that employers also need to equip their workers on how do we have civil discourse? What does that look like? Because, I may say, there's several political positions, several hot buttons, if you will. Just think about some of these terms when you think about the hot button issues: immigration, abortion, free rights, right? All of those things. An emotional connection is going to occur when you go through the very, very long list of political challenges, opinions, and decisions that need to be made, first for ourselves and then for our nation. We need to acknowledge, and employers need to help their workers acknowledge that we're going to have that emotional connection to some of these things. And what do we do about that, right? First, acknowledging, my hands just got sweaty when Lisa said that word, right? Or made a mention of that. How do we react? How do we relate to that? And how do we manage that so that we can have the discourse, so that we can have a conversation, not a, I'm going to tell you my opinion and try to change your mind. You're not going to change anybody's mind, but you can understand and provide an understanding of where your vantage point is, and likewise for them to be, clear in terms of why they believe what they believe, why they vote the way they vote.
So let's talk about a little bit legal consideration. So, what legal considerations should employers keep in mind when providing employees like with voting leave, and that how these may vary by state?
Yes, so there's a couple of things that we need to understand. There is an act called the National Labor Relations Act, and it ties into, many workers might say, "Oh, I have the right to free speech," and yes, the First Amendment right to free speech is a protection, but it protects people from having their speech limited from the government, right? We have to understand that. So we have to also, ascertain, am I talking about a federal employer or a private industry employer? Private employers can regulate speech in almost every way that doesn't conflict with this NLRA, right? Section 7 of the NLRA, which protects employees' right to discuss work conditions, salary, that it's too hot, that there are too many accidents in the workplace, right? So there are protections there under the NLRA, and those should not be restricted or infringed upon. But when it comes to political discussions, there may be some gray areas. If the political discussion is talking about minimum wage, labor laws, OSHA compliance, whistleblower, we may have some protections there. Okay. Barring that, the definite best strategy is focusing the restrictions on maintaining productivity, avoiding conflict, maintaining the other policies, right? No harassment, no discrimination, things of that nature, but ensure that those policies are applied consistently and fairly. Don't let one political party show up and have a voice and not the other. Don't let one wear the political pin and not the other, right? We've got to make sure that there's uniformity and consistency and that they're fairly applied. But those are some tripwires that employers need to be cautious of.
Okay. So, with regard to employees, so now I'm going from the mind of employees. What should employees be aware of regarding social media posts,
Mm,
tweets, and political activity outside of work
yeah,
to avoid potential conflicts with their employer's policy? What
that's
should they be aware of there?
Well, that's a loaded question, for sure, and one that I am going to answer. But I do want to provide a link, if I can, in the chat to answer your voting questions. Okay,
Okay.
every state has different voting laws. There's no federal requirement. However, this Vote 411 can give your listeners an idea of what the different, because I know we have a couple of different states in the room. So this is a great resource to ascertain what your state law is first. And keep in mind, it may not only be a state law, each city, county may have different laws there as well. So there's really not one answer I can provide, but provide the resources to do the research to find out what your state, city, ordinance, county might require. In that question as well, employers also need to be aware that giving time off to vote is important. Whether that time has to be paid or not is also regulated by the state. But most employers tend to say, yes, we'll give you time to vote if it's before or after work. We'll let you, in late or
Hmm.
out early, that kind of thing. So structure your policies reference to that based first on what that state or ordinance is. Now for the social media question. That's a loaded question because there's still so much gray areas with that. Employees really do need to be aware that their social media activity, even outside of work, can have consequences, especially if it conflicts
Hmm.
with their employer's policy or can reflect poorly on the company, right? As a private employer, I have the ability to restrict what kind of environment is let into my organization. And when something prohibits that positive culture that I'm trying to create, even if it does come from outside, that could have an impact internally as well. And there are cases that employers really are taking disciplinary action too. If an employee's political post violates the company's code of conduct, or can create what's known as this hostile work environment. But it's a very, very slippery slope. In the workplace, emphasize that employers, we have to know that there's a right to limit political conversations during work hours to prevent distractions and conflict. If that off-duty time seeps into on-duty time, that's where we really have to be aware in terms of how we go about managing that, because that off-duty speech can have an impact, and employers can protect that, from happening, because it's seeping into the workplace itself.
So you talk about code of conduct, right? And this is going to be my last question for you. You talk about code of conduct. So there is, of course, that expectation that employers have a code of conduct. But how can employers ensure that their policies regarding political speech that's embedded, I would imagine, in their code of conduct do not violate any type of equal employment opportunity laws, EEO laws?
Yeah. So we're really thinking about this in two different ways, right? EEO laws, equal employment opportunity laws, have to do with specific things such as race, religion, gender, national origin. And so when we think about that, Title VII, right? Google it. We'll outline what those EEO laws are, right? Disability, things of that nature, marital status, right? Those kinds of things. Employers should focus their policies on workplace behavior and conduct, because we want to make sure that we're maintaining professionalism, productivity, but not on the specific political views of employees. When you think about EEO, ensuring that alignment to what those laws require will help keep you in, outside of the gray areas. If it has to do with something that's EEO or Title VII specific, you're likely going to be in good shape. The minute you start to kind of spill into, if you will, specific political views of employees, that could get you in a little trouble.
Okay. Lisa, I said that was my last question, but I have one. It's
No,
going to
go
take
for
three.
it. This is
If you had to wrap up with two basic little statements or comments for someone that is taking notes, they're an employer, they own their own business, or maybe they are an employee, what are your top two tips on navigating political discussions at work? Because what I hear you saying, Lisa, and also what this article states, is that we can't just shut it down,
we
right?
can't.
This is going to take place. I know you said seek first to understand, so maybe that's one of your number one tips.
Yeah.
But is there any other that you would give?
I think, whether for employers or the individuals who have taken time to be on this call, I think we do have to realize that an individual's political party, political beliefs really are something that are deep rooted, right? And go to the core of who that person is. Seek first to understand what those things are, because that humanizes that individual as well. And secondly, I don't know that the discourse and the conversations that we have should be intended, and I think I said this earlier, to change someone's opinion. I think it rather should be done as an opportunity to hear someone out and understand who they are a little bit better, rather than, right, getting their vantage point and their perspective on their opinions, rather than to change their mind or to say, I'm right, you're wrong. That's not the landscape, and that's not the, I think, approach or the end result that we should be seeking. It's really an opportunity to better understand, not a means to change someone's mind.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate,
My
while we're
pleasure.
pulling our slides back up, if you have any questions for Lisa, absolutely put those in the chat. And then we will allow some time to have those questions answered. But we are really, really moving fast with time. It's already almost halfway through this session. And so Rosalind is going to introduce our next presenter.
Yes, and I just want to say thank you, Alton, for that comment that he has used that link 411.org. So obviously that'll be a great resource. And when we put it on our YouTube channel, we'll make sure that that resource is provided. Thank you so much for that, Lisa. I'm just going to check the chat. I don't see anything there. All right, so we will move on to our next speaker. That is Erika Obando. And Erika and I are in the same professional group, NABO, the National Association of Women Business Owners. She is currently the president, and I am so excited for her to be with us today. Erika is a globally acclaimed TEDx speaker. She speaks internationally. She is an author. Her book is incredible. I read it in 24 hours. I gave it to my husband to read when he was in jury duty. He read it in a day. It is that compelling of a story. She is a certified master life coach and president of TPE Coaching and Consulting. With over a decade of experience in keynote speaking and coaching, she is a sought-after voice for companies and individuals alike, offering transformative insights and strategies for personal and professional development. She is author of, you probably are like, what is the name of this book? Without a Voice, A Woman's Journey to Resiliency. And she shares her powerful story of overcoming unthinkable hardships and inspires others to rewrite their own narratives. Through these powerful mediums, she demonstrates how changing the narrative of one's own story can lead to personal empowerment and success. So I am thrilled to bring up Miss Erika.
Thank you. I need to walk around with you more often because I really like that interview. I'm like, if somebody asks me, Erika, who are you? Well, ask her. I liked hers. Thank you for having me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to get this started, but give me 2 seconds. But I'm really, really excited as I was hearing Lisa and Renee discuss some of these topics. I'm like, wow, it is so beautifully aligned with how I'm going to, dive into that as well. So let's definitely get into talking politics, and it's more importantly, the value of respect in this conversation. And I want to start off by asking you, how many of you, and you can raise your hand, relate to this? Are you suffering from election talk exhaustion in the workplace? You can't get rid of it. You can't get away from it, whether it's at work or whether it's in your personal life or speaking with colleagues. It is a very topical, first go-to conversation. And the point is, as Lisa said, it's not about how do you get away from it, but more importantly, how to navigate it with civility, empathy, and just, with a solution-oriented mindset. So what I'm going to give you today is 2 tools: how to maintain neutrality and how to focus on shared goals, because that is the essence of the human experience. Not if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or undecided. It's about the human experience that we are going through right now, okay? And we'll start off with this: maintaining neutrality. I love this. It's not about the absence of opinion. It's not that you don't have the opinion to share, but it's the presence of respect for all perspectives. Again, shedding back or peeling back the onion as to how can I connect to you, even in that passion of yours, right? But at a human level rather than a political position. And again, because I'm a life coach, I always say to my clients, these are tools that you can, recycle in your personal life, in your relationships, regardless of whether it's political or not. And it all boils down to having empathy. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for this second because I want to see your faces as I share a particular story. As I said, it's happening often more than not. And I just recently experienced something myself that I had to use my own tools in this space. I am part of a nonpartisan organization that requires us in certain positions within the organization to be nonpartisan, right? Whether or not I have a position of my political views, I have to show my face and front-facing opinion, very nonpartisan. It just so happens that recently I had a situation where 2 key members of this organization in both parties represented themselves again in social media. Lisa, when you were talking about the social media representation, I'm like, yes, that's exactly what we're going to dive into. If they both represented themselves in their different opinions on social media. And again, even though it was on their personal pages, it is a reflection of their roles within our organization. And so I had the challenge of having this very intense, challenging conversation with these two individuals. And the reason why it was successful, it wasn't because I said anything to invalidate their post or their opinion or whatever they posted. It was about, how do I find a connection with you so you could understand how we move forward progressively? And I first validated. If there is one of my favorite tools I share with my clients is validate first and then deliver. What does that mean? Validate their position. We all want to be validated to some degree, right? When we put something out there, especially on social media, we want validation. We want to recruit people to say, yes, I agree with you. I am behind you 100%. So validate the person. Hey, listen, I saw what you posted and I could see your passion behind it. And I commend you for having the passion. I'm not representing any political position. I'm just saying I commend you for having this kind of passion, because it's inside of that passion that we do something about it, right? However, and then I delivered, right? So I validated her first, and then I delivered the information. However, in this particular climate, in this particular organization, we have to represent ourselves this way. And then I asked her, how can we move forward so that we can find a solution where you're happy and I'm happy? But do you see the difference? It's not like I said, hey, I saw what you posted, you need to take that down, because then that's an attack. Instead, I went into it with a solution-oriented mindset. And how do I, scale this down, right? So that we can both have a human conversation. Is that making sense? I'm dealing with humans. We're not dealing with robots yet. We are dealing with humans. So remember that it's a simple conversation of validate and deliver. Okay, so I'll go to my next point. As Aretha Franklin said it best, RESPECT, right? Respect. Focus on shared goals. Work towards the common goal regardless of the differing views. Again, we're going to have differing views regardless of whether it's politics, relationships, friendship. It doesn't matter. We're always going to have differing views, but it's about focusing your energy on the passion of the person, right? That we can both connect to. If you really took the political climate right now that we have and you peeled it back, you boil down to what? Both parties are extremely passionate. Okay, so then now we found a connecting value, a common denominator. Now let's build from there so that you can have progressive conversations within the workplace. I am huge on using a tool called framing and reframing. There is a way to frame things and there is a way to reframe things so that you can have an end goal in mind. And this is the tool that I wanted to share with you, right? Just to use the acronym RESPECT. Recognize the power in diverse perspectives, okay? Instead of, attacking the person again, I could have very well handled that situation by saying, you need to take this down and kind of, apply my authority on it. Or let's focus on how our different viewpoints can help us find a common goal, right? A common ground. When I talked to that individual, I said, I see your passion and I feel it. And man, I love that means you're alive, right? So I found common goal with her. And then from there, I said, how can we use that common goal to apply it to this particular position? I respect that we are on different polar opposites, but how can we do it for the common goal? Right? And then I put it back on her rather than me just giving her what to do. Empathy and validation to align on common objectives. Again, validate the person. All we want is validation. And once you validate, you disarm the heightened situation to a conversation. So it went from a argument or a potential argument to now, all right, I get you, you saw me. So how can we move forward? I understand where you're coming from. Validate. Let's see how we can connect this to our work shared goals. Okay, bring it back to what it is. Outside of the 9 to 5 or whatever your schedule is, you have autonomy to do as you please, right? But inside of a company environment and that capsule, we are all representative of that business. And so we have to keep that goal set in mind when we're representing ourselves outside of it. S is for seek to understand. Again, Lisa, I was like, yes, you and I are speaking the same language. Seek to understand instead of responding. And again, this is a universal tool that you can apply to relationships, conversations, your kids, your significant others, right? Can you tell me more about how I can help support you outside of this conversation? Right? That no one's going to get pissed off at you if you ask that question. No one's going to get, all up in an uproar because you say, how can I support you? So again, you're bringing down the conversation or the topic down to a conversation level. P, prioritize patience. It takes a few tries. Not everybody's ready because we are so, again, I remember there was a time where, Republicans and Democrats could say what they wanted to say and have a healthy, competitive conversation, but still shake hands at the end of the day. Right. And right now, our climate on many topics have become very like, I'm not even going to go in your direction because I'm so passionate about it. I've lost myself in it. So instead of swearing the person off or saying, oh, I'm done with this person, whether it's an employee, a boss, a significant other, a friend, just remember that it takes patience. This has been a buildup. So again, bring it towards a solution-oriented mindset. Hey, I'm listening. Again, validate. I'm listening. Please help me understand how we can both move forward progressively. Right? It's not about the fight. It's about I'm extending my olive branch. How can you extend your olive branch so that we can move, we could stay friends, we can stay colleagues, I can still stay working here? Because a lot of people have left their workplaces because of a political, it's insane. How would you leave a great employment because of a political conversation, right? You should be able to be who you are and represent who you are without leaving your employment. Elevate emotional intelligence. I'm huge on EQ over IQ, right? Elevate your emotional intelligence in managing responses, right? You could either do, would you be okay if I take a moment to process sharing my thoughts, right? Take a pause. Not everything has to be answered right immediately, right away, because sometimes in a heated conversation, what's out is out and you can never put it back in, right? So if you feel that heat coming up, pause and recognize that you need to take a minute to collect your thoughts and then come back, whether you're in a management position or in an employment position, right? Or how can we improve our discussion flow? Again, put it back on the person. You don't have to be the delegator of all the responses, all the right answers. Put it back on the person. If the conversation is heated, how can we improve our discussion flow? How do we move past this point without, again, like Lisa said, without changing my mind or trying to change who I am? How do we move forward? Right? And you put it back on that. I say that communication is a seesaw. Everybody remembers the seesaw, right? And we remember in the playground, when you're in a seesaw, it was not fun when somebody was always up and when somebody was always down, right? The fun part about it was the engagement, right? So communication is a seesaw engagement. How do you kick it back to the person, right? And elevate yourself so that person now has the autonomy to say, hey, this is how I think we should move forward. Okay. C is for create safe spaces for productive dialogue. Again, in those bubbles of conversations I had to have with my teammates, I created a space where I was like, it's you and me right this second. It's a safe space. And we, you can say whatever you have to say, but how can I further support you? And let's move forward. Again, always solution oriented and forward facing, right? How do you feel with our conversation? Again, these are all passionate induced conversations. So ask the person, how do you feel? I had to ask both of them in different, perspectives. How do you feel about this? And then let's move towards the solution. And then the last one is T. Take ownership of promoting constructive communication. Again, it's not about moving away from the topic, or it's not them versus us. It's about, I'm going to own this. I'm going to come in with these tools that Latina, super excited chick on the webinar was talking about. How do I apply all these respect tools into it and take ownership? I'll do my best to keep our conversation respectful and focused on collaboration. Again, moving away from the actual topic and bringing it back to how do you meet me halfway, right? Because we're trying to create a solution. All right. So that's what I wanted to leave you with today. And I definitely want to connect with you and open it up for questions, because I know, again, in these particular cases, we're so passionate about it that we don't know what direction. Sometimes you're in a conversation and you feel like you have to stay quiet. I'll give a personal little window. You would have to read the book, as Rosalind said. I come from a very traumatic childhood, but also a very divisive one because of the trauma that we went through. And I just recently, within the last 3-4 years, rekindled a relationship with my brother, who I absolutely love the relationship we have now, right? Because we're two different people. We healed, we grew, and now we met each other here. I adore him. We currently found out we are in different, perspectives of this political climate. And for me, I'm like, it is so not worth all the buildup of this beautiful relationship with my brother because of a political position. And what we both did was, let me take it 2 steps back again, peel back the onion. What is important to me in this situation? Keeping my relationship with my brother, because I longed for it when I didn't have it. So I said, you know what? I respect him. He's still an intelligent man. He's still a great father and a great brother. And that's where I'm going to put my passion into, not who he's going to go vote for at his poll or who I'm going to go vote for at my poll. Okay. So I don't know, I'm sure we'll share our information, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll open it up for questions. But again, the point here is connect to your shared goal and work from a place of respect.
So I don't really have, I just wanted to read, Harry left some information, just a comment in the chat as you were speaking regarding seeking to understand. And one of the things that he shares is he has an extensive background in HR, and he said when he would have 2 people who couldn't seem to get along, what he would do is put them together to learn as much about each other, to gain understanding, just as we talked about, to understand and to gain and understand their side of the issues of the conflict, not for them to change each other's opinions, back to what Lisa shared, as well as you, but to understand why they think the way they do. It helped to reduce the hostility. And one of the things, Erika, that you said is that we all have differing opinions. My husband actually happens to be on this call right now. We have different opinions. We've been together nearly 30 years, right? So if we who've built a life together, have kids together, have different opinions, absolutely, we're going to have different opinions from people who we don't live with on a day-to-day basis. And so thank you for those practical steps on how to navigate, as you said, navigate those spaces. So let me just look.
We have a question from Alton. How should you deal with a colleague who is passive aggressive and uses comedy to voice political views or demean differing views?
Well, we all have our comfort zones on how we communicate. And sometimes when we are anxious or self-conscious, we revert to comedy. I used to do it a lot, right? Because it diffuses the attention from how nervous I am or how insecure I was in my position. And then I just use comedy to kind of brush it off. And yes, comedy sometimes can come across as passive aggressive. But again, you just have to peel back the onion and get to the root of the thing, right? If the person is behaving in that, I highly recommend for you to single that person out in that, create that safe space, that last S in respect, right? Create the safe space where you ask a real question. Tell me what's going on, right? Tell me how I can support you, because I see that there's something brewing underneath the comedy and then the comments, but tell me, how can I support you? Again, it's not about the politics or anything. That's a symptom of the conversation. It's about the root of it. How can I support you? And then when you come in with that question, you diffuse it. And in most cases, people will be more apt to talk to you about, yeah, man, you got on the money, like, you're right, this is what I'm going through. But comedy is often a tool used as a scapegoat for the real problem, which is the one that's brewing again. And most of it is sometimes rooted in trauma, right? When you have gone through a lot of trauma, again, and I identify with that. When you go through so much trauma, the only thing you have to use is comedy to get away from the realness of your trauma. But if you take the time to take the layers off, you see it.
Yeah. I'm going to jump into to your point as
I knew
well,
you
Eric.
would. I knew you would, Lisa. Yeah.
I always have
You
an
would.
opinion about everything, right? And to your point, right, taking that conversation to the side, right, making sure that you're not putting someone on the spot in public. That would be embarrassing, right? But you could say something like, I've noticed that some of your comments during our meetings have used humor to bring up political issues. Now, depending on your stance, you could say it creates discomfort for me, and I prefer to maintain neutral, professional environment, or I prefer not to discuss anything political inside the workplace. But being transparent enough to and calling that behavior out, whether it's coming from a place of trauma or what have you. You don't want to perpetuate more discomfort in the workplace, right? They're feeling uncomfortable. They make a joke. Now you're feeling uncomfortable because they're bringing up politics. It's a way to kind of create a neutral environment that kind of calls it what it is, but also puts your boundary in place for yourself as well.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with what you're saying. I would only flip it a little bit in the validating first, right?
Of
Because
course, of
if you
course.
start off with the conversation that this is making me uncomfortable,
Yes,
then that raises the bar, the wall a little higher. Whereas
absolutely.
I understand that this is, then you de-escalate it, where now
Yeah.
they're having a conversation with you. But thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, ladies, thank you for those practical tips. I love how we give some really practical ways to navigate this situation. I have the honor of introducing Rosalind, who is going to be our final speaker. Rosalind is a best-selling author, and she embodies the insight to deliver both strategically and tactically, ensuring success of domestic and global initiatives. She's been described as a collaborative leader with the ability to build relationships at all levels within an organization. She has expertise in world-class leadership with diverse teams across North America. She's an effective diplomatic communicator that inspires her audience with practical solutions. Those that have worked on her team often say that she's fair, she's creative, she's optimistic, and a strong advocate and an active listener. She does such a good job with listening. She has the ability to navigate through constant change and ambiguity. She discovers opportunities and maximizes them to improve the company's profitability. Rosalind, we're excited to hear what you have to share with us.
Yeah, this is going to be a quick understanding of sometimes why it's so hard and difficult sometimes to actually work with people. You want people to play nice in the sandbox, and sometimes that just doesn't happen. And you might wonder to yourself, why are people so difficult in 2024? But before I go there, I want to ask, has anyone ever traveled to Alaska? You can put yes or no in the chat. And the reason why I asked that, I remember when my mom went to Alaska, she would send us so many pictures of icebergs that she used to see. And in fact, you know how Facebook memories, no, on your phone, the memories pop up. And so lately she's been sending us pictures from her Alaska trip. Well, she absolutely loved these icebergs. And I see not yet, no. Well, yes, Lisa says best cruise ever. Angie has gone, amazing cruise. So you two ladies know about these icebergs. And often in the workplace or when we are dealing with individuals, it is 7 seconds. Within 7 seconds of meeting someone, they will make 11 judgments about you. I want you to really soak that in. Within 7 seconds, 11 judgments, and really to move them from those judgments that they initially make about you is even harder. And it is what we call the iceberg effect, which is actually a term that was given by the writer Ernest Hemingway. So when you think about an iceberg, you have to be so careful because it's easy to collide into an iceberg because only 10% of that iceberg is actually going to show on top of the water. Right. So those are the things that we see in those 7 seconds. Imagine that we're all icebergs. And within those 7 seconds, we can see maybe their gender, their race, their ethnicity. We'll make assumptions, right? Many times we're making assumptions. We can see the topical behaviors that are in front of us, their language. We might try to guess how old they are. That's what we can see on top of the surface. But underneath, the majority of who we are as an individual is underneath the surface. And that is where things can start colliding when we go underneath the surface, just like those beloved icebergs that my mom was sending me pictures of. 90% of an iceberg is underneath the water. So what are those type of things? My physical abilities, my childhood experiences. Like Erika said, there's trauma. If she had not been safe enough to disclose that, we wouldn't even know. My life experiences, my education, if I'm educated, how much education I have, my religion, many times my sexual orientation, the true age of who I am, right? I can look a certain way and you can make an assumption about my age, but really underneath is what is that true age? My values, what is my work ethic? What is the culture? What do I believe? Those things, what are my fears, my challenges, my goals? Those things are underneath the surface. And I'm only going to bring them to the surface in the workspace if I feel safe enough. And so many times you will hear people say, we want this to be an authentic workplace where you bring your best self to work. What they're saying is, we want you to bring what might be underneath the water up to the top so that we're able to see it, but not only able to see it, but able to support you. So in our everyday interactions, the crux of why it is so hard to oftentimes get along with someone or understand that passion is literally because 90% of who they are is underneath the water. As we're looking at each other right now, we don't know if we're right-handed or left-handed. We don't know if we're tall or short, right? Many of us are sitting down. Some of us might be standing up. We don't even know what country we might be in. So I want you to think about that the next time that you're having a conversation with someone and really pause and think, man, what judgments and assumptions am I making in these 7 seconds that I've met someone?
Thank you
Renee?
so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I'm going to put in the chat the link to the article that I'm referencing, and it provided, in basically just pulling all of this together, it provided 4 tips for navigating political discussions at work. And some of this we've already heard, but this was number one. Acknowledge that regardless of individuals' political party or their beliefs, tensions are running high in our communities and in our workplaces, right? Just the acknowledgement of that alone, similar to what Erika said, that validation that yes, this is taking place. Secondly, you want to remind your employees that the workplace is a place where everyone should feel safe, they should feel welcome, respected, and included, right? No arguments there. Third, we want to communicate to our employees that the company doesn't want to limit healthy dialogue about social issues, but the employer does have a vested interest in reducing any type of disruption to the services that you offer in the marketplace and maintaining a culture of respect. Lastly, you want to encourage employees to approach these conversations from a place of curiosity and accept that they may not find common ground. That's been a very common thing amongst us. You're not necessarily going to change someone's mind, but the conversation should be seen as an opportunity for better understanding and not a means to change someone's mind. And so we wanted to have this dialogue. We wanted to have this conversation because we want to bring calm to the chaos that we see in the world. We are so thankful that you are here. If you want to, Rosalind, we can kind of stop recording at this point because I do want to leave a safe space if someone wanted to jump off mute and share anything, feel free to do so. If you have any questions for us, if you want to reach out to us or to connect with us, please, by all means, feel free to utilize the information that was up on the screen. But are there any questions, any comments? Thank you to our